In September 2017, Hurricane Irma made landfall in the British Virgin Islands and flattened Necker Island, Richard Branson's private island, the same island that rents out for $118,500 a night for a full buyout. Every building on it. Branson himself rode out the storm in a wine cellar built into a hillside, because at that point it was safer than the house. Rebuilding it took years and cost, by most estimates, tens of millions of dollars, on an island that already generates some of the highest nightly rates in the private hospitality industry. So you want to own a private island? Let's take it apart. What people assume is that this is the ultimate simple asset. Buy a piece of land, except this piece of land happens to be surrounded by water, and it comes with total privacy, total control, and a story you get to tell for the rest of your life. No neighbors, no noise ordinances, no homeowners association, just you and the ocean. What's actually happening is that a private island might be one of the most operationally punishing assets a person can own, and almost none of the real costs are the ones people picture. Start with the purchase price, because even that is misleading. Private islands themselves list anywhere from around $50,000 for a small, undeveloped patch of rock to well over $100 million for something with existing infrastructure, but the sale price is just the entry fee. Every single thing you build on that island, the dock, the villas, the power system, the water system, costs somewhere between 1.5 and 3 times what the same construction would cost on the mainland. Not because island labor is more skilled, because every piece of material has to be shipped in by barge, every worker has to be transported and housed on site. Weather delays construction constantly, and the marine engineering required just to get materials onto the island safely is its own specialized, expensive industry. Take the dock alone. A basic deep-water jetty that can handle a supply barge and a yacht runs anywhere from $300,000 for something modest to over $15 million for something built to hospitality standards. And that's before a single villa gets built. Full resort-style construction, the main lodge, the guest villas, the staff quarters, typically run somewhere between $8 million and $50 million on top of the land itself. Then there's the part almost nobody budgets for correctly: keeping the island running once it exists. An island isn't connected to a municipal power grid or a city water line. You are the utility company now. A solar array with diesel backup costs somewhere between $500,000 and $2 million just to install, and even then, the diesel generator still needs fuel and servicing every month, typically $1,000 to $5,000. And here's the detail that breaks people's intuition. For a genuinely remote island, the cost of transporting that diesel fuel out to the island can be higher than the price of the fuel itself. You're not just paying for power, you're paying to ship the ability to make power. Water works the same way. A reverse osmosis desalination system big enough to supply a small resort costs $200,000 to $700,000 to install, and then costs another $3 to $7 per cubic meter to actually run, plus annual filter replacement. Every glass of water, every shower, every load of laundry on that island is manufactured on site, in real time, from salt water, by a machine that needs maintenance nobody on a random island automatically knows how to perform, which is why most private island operations have to fly in specialized engineers rather than hire locally. And then there's staff. Necker Island runs with more than 100 people on payroll: chefs, boat crews, groundskeepers, hospitality staff, maintenance engineers, security. Labor typically eats 10 to 15% of a serious island's entire operating budget, and because staff are working somewhere they can't simply commute home from, owners have to budget for housing them, feeding them, and rotating them on and off the island on a schedule, which adds its own logistics cost on top of the wages themselves. Add it all up, and a fully developed luxury private island can run something like $563,000 a month in pure fixed overhead before a single guest ever books a night. smaller, less developed private islands still typically run $85,000 to $310,000 a year just to keep functioning. Property tax, insurance, maintenance, a caretaker, boat transport, utility upkeep. So back to the pitch. Total privacy, total control, the ultimate trophy asset. Here's the part that actually determines whether it makes any financial sense at all. Most private island owners who rent their island out only book somewhere between 6 and 10 weeks a year. Rental rates at the very top of the market run anywhere from $20,000 a night to well over $150,000 a night for a full exclusive buyout. Run the math on the high end, and 6 to 10 weeks of bookings can cover 50 to 100% of the island's entire annual operating cost, which means at best, in a great year, the island roughly breaks even on operations. It does not typically generate profit the way a normal rental property does. The income is really just partial reimbursement for the privilege of owning something this expensive to maintain. And then there's the risk that doesn't show up on any spreadsheet until it happens. Hurricanes, flooding, and storm surge aren't a hypothetical for most private islands. They're a recurring line item. Necker Island's rebuild after Irma took years. Insurance for waterfront property in hurricane zones is expensive when it's available at all, and after a big enough storm, some owners find it isn't available on any terms they can afford. You're not just maintaining a piece of real estate. You're maintaining a piece of real estate that nature periodically tries to reclaim. So who's actually getting rich here? Not, in most cases, the person who owns just one island and rents it out a few weeks a year. They're mostly paying to keep their own trophy asset alive. The real money sits with the people servicing that ownership. Luxury brokerages like Sotheby's International Realty and Christie's International Real Estate handle private island sales and coastal estate acquisitions as part of networks doing over $100 billion in annual global transaction volume, earning commission whether the island makes its owner a single dollar or not. And a newer model has emerged entirely around managing islands for people who don't want to run one themselves. Stewardship and management companies that sell fractional ownership units to multiple buyers charge mandatory annual operational fees that can start around $6 million in first-year revenue alone, and layer concierge and logistics fees on top. The private island real estate market itself is projected to grow from roughly $7.8 billion in 2025 to $17.5 billion by 2035. And almost all of that growth is being captured by the brokers, developers, and management companies standing between the island and the person who thinks they own it outright. Run the real numbers. Buy the island, pay 1.5 to 3 times normal construction costs to build anything on it, budget hundreds of thousands to millions just to manufacture your own power and water, keep 100-plus staff on payroll and rotation, spend up to $563,000 a month keeping it all running, rent it out for a few weeks a year at 5 or 6 figures a night just to offset a fraction of that, and accept that a hurricane can erase years of investment in a single afternoon. That's not a trophy asset, behaving like real estate. That's closer to owning a small, extremely expensive, extremely fragile hotel that only occasionally has guests. So here's the whole thing in one line. A private island sells you the fantasy of total control over a piece of the ocean, but what you're actually buying is your own private utility company, your own private staffing agency, and your own private disaster risk. And the closest thing to guaranteed profit in the entire industry belongs to the brokers and management companies who never have to spend a single night riding out a storm in the wine cellar. So the next time you see a photo of someone's private island vacation, you'll know somewhere behind that photo is a diesel generator, a desalination plant, and 100 people making sure none of it fails before the guests notice.